Good afternoon again. We are back to our live streaming for our virtual career fair. My name again, I'm back, and hopefully you are not really getting used to my face seeing here all over again. um, my name is Jay. I'll be your host for today, and we are on the third day of our virtual career fair live streaming. And today's topic is very exciting. I find it really interesting for everyone, not just for me, okay? But before we kick-started the session today, just a bit of reminder for everyone, okay? Come on, copy this link, invite your friends, send it to your friends and family because you don't want them to miss this opportunity. Knowing or learning a lot of things you might want to know about negotiation of the salary, because this is what I'm going to talk about today, okay? So why don't you just copy the link and send it to your friends? Come on, be responsible as a friend, of course, okay? All right, today we are gonna talk about, like I said, 7 must know to master salary negotiation during an interview. And let me introduce to you our speaker. He is actually passionate about advocacy and use of career development towards helping people find meaning and purpose of their career, of their careers. As an experienced career developer, he has supported more than 300 individuals with their career needs. So later on, if after this live streaming, if you need something about your careers or need some advices, you can always chat with them, and they're happy to advise or give you advices on what you will need to be done for your career. Okay, so without further ado, hi, Winston.
Hi, Jay.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Jay. I'm doing great. And Jay, I'm very sure that this being day 3, everyone remembers you. All right. So thank you for getting us all started. Let me
Okay.
just share my slides over here. Right, Jay, are you seeing the slides?
Yes, I can. I can.
Wonderful, great. Thank you so much, Jay, for the introduction. And a very good afternoon to everyone. Whether you're watching on Zoom or you're watching on Facebook, whichever the case, a very good afternoon to you. Today's topic, like what Jay mentioned, is really interesting. It's about salary negotiation. This is what I term as a really interesting topic because it's very seldom mentioned, right? A lot of us, we don't even think about this in terms of our job search until the very last stage. It's like, it's a good to know when you get the job, right? So today, I'm very glad I got a chance to kind of share with you 7 things, right? And if you stay all the way to the end, I'll throw in 2 more bonus things. So that's the total of 9, all right? So hang in there. We're getting quite a lot of eyeballs online and as well as over in Zoom. So tune in, Some of you here might be at the start of your job search, and this will be useful for you as you progress through the different interview stages. Some of you, maybe you're having a call later and you're going to kind of negotiate your salary with the employer. So, I really hope you can glean some things out of this. And for some of you, maybe this is just lunch company, right? You're having your hot soup, eating your rice, chicken rice, or eating something. And then you just want some noise, you just want some company. I'm just glad to be here to be that company. And I hope you all learned something from me today. So before I begin, I just want to qualify that a lot of things I'm sharing today, it's not really from a book, or it's not from some central source of truth, right? It's really gleaned from many people's stories. A lot of clients I've helped, when they tell me about their salary negotiation, I kind of become the 10-year series, if I might, right, of what salary negotiation should be. So throughout my sharing, I might pepper in some case studies, some real things. So if it sounds like you, right, please don't be offended, all right? It merely is a resemblance. It might not be your situation I'm talking about, all right? But because it's so important, that for me to be able to piece all of these practices and all of these things that I observe across the board, right? So that into 9 things actually for all of us to know, and perhaps this could be useful. All right, I'm going to jump straight into it. Salary negotiation is actually happy times, all right? Nobody is set to go into a salary negotiation because when you enter that stage, you are super close. You're the top 3, top 4, or even the only one that the employer is kind of thinking about, right? So salary negotiation is supposed to be happy times, right? But very often what happens is that we do get a little bit worried when it comes to salary, all right? It's no longer about the resume or the interview. It's more about, how do I exactly negotiate? I don't really know how to. And more importantly, a lot of us here, actually, we don't feel confident enough to negotiate. We have to remember this point because it's a big thing when it comes to bargaining power, if we don't feel confident, we are not able to negotiate effectively. You're kind of like going into this negotiation knowing that you already lost and whatever they're going to offer you, and then that's it. All right. So what I will also say that, sometimes it even catches you off guard, right? I had one situation in my own life very early on in my career, but I was caught off guard with a salary negotiation. The negotiation happened during the job interview at the first round. And wow, it totally blew me away. I got a shock. I wasn't expecting it. As I reflected on my own response there's lots of learning points. And over this time, I want to kind of share with you what I learned, not just from myself, but from other clients as well, right? So before I begin, I want to cover what is the fundamentals of salary. And this is really a perspective shift for a lot of us. A lot of us, we think of salary as just something that that the employer is supposed to pay me, right? And maybe it's something that should be increased as I progress. So for me, salary should always be increasing and increasing by a certain percentage. Some of us might think that way, but what really is salary perceived by employers, right? And in the industry, in companies, salary is really an exchange of your time in performing a service for the company, right? This kind of, maybe you never quite see this way. You spend 8 hours, 10 hours, some of you 12 hours even at home or in the workplace doing something for your employer. What you're actually getting back is an exchange, and that's your salary, right? So if you take that perspective in mind, your time, then perhaps your responsibilities and how complicated your work is, how pressurizing your role is, all these kind of determines how much pay you actually get, right? How much the role is actually worth. So what happens is also within a company, they don't just decide salaries like by plucking off the air, or they can't just offer you something that you want, because there are internal guidelines, right? That guide how much, a certain type of role, a certain seniority is actually due to be paid. Okay, so this internal salary framework allows you to kind of be benchmarked within the company, so that there is parity, there is fairness. Okay, and also this framework itself in the company is also marked against external market rate, because your competitors, the companies that are competing with the company you are working for, they do need to take note of what the markets out there is paying, because you know why? Good people leave sometimes because another company is paying more, right? So that's the reason why this framework becomes really important. This salary benchmark becomes really important. How much you are paid. It maintains fairness and it maintains competitiveness. So knowing that, many times when we go into an interview, sometimes a lot of you might face that HR start to ask you, can you tell me what was your last drawn salary? And then some of you wonder, should I say or should I not say? Is this the beginning of the salary negotiation or not? So, many times HR want to know this because they're doing some things like, for example, they're screening based on budget, because maybe they're looking at you and the big company that you're coming from, the experiences you've had, they think you're paid a certain amount, so they're asking you, so that they want to see whether what they have in terms of the budget for that role, whether it fits with them. Because why? They want to screen as early as possible so that they don't lead you into the job, into later stages of interview, only to discover they can't afford to pay you. So that's one reason why they do that. Another one is they're also benchmarking, of course, to the internal pay scale I mentioned earlier. They want to know where you fit in, because the title matters. Maybe you're earning at a certain rate, and then the vacancy that they have is for a lower role. So they want to kind of find out where your salary fits in the bracket, so that they can actually give you a higher title or maybe adjust lower depending on the situation you're in. All right. But whichever the case, I just want you to know that in Singapore, it's not illegal for employers to ask you for your salary. All right. This was mentioned in Parliament before, I think last year, in one of the debates. The minister did mention that it's not illegal for Singapore for employers to ask, but she did say that for job seekers, you can refuse, right, politely and gently. So I hope that in providing you this perspective, you kind of also know, depending on where you are in the interview stage, why sometimes people are starting to ask you for your salary. All right. So the golden tip is this: as much as possible, I would say, delay revealing your salary amounts for as long as possible. All right. And I'll go into that in a little bit. So in reality, when we make a change in our job seekers, what do we want? We want a big increase, or we want a moderate increase. That's what we hope to get, But in reality, what do employers hope to do? They hope to give us a small increase, a moderate increase, a small increase, or no increase. So that is the shift, our expectations and the reality of what they are willing to do. All right. So some of you might wonder, maybe why is employers not looking at cutting the pay? Well, many times employers feel that if today they have to pay you lesser, than what you paid the last time, right? They will smell something fishy. They also wonder, if I pay you lesser than what you're earning the last time, would you stay for long with me? All right. So that's the reason why employers will minimally want to maintain, all right, what you have currently and give you as little as possible, the increments. And for you, you actually are trying to ask for more, starting from a higher position. So this point about positions of expectations is something that we'll cover later on when it comes to bargaining. All right. So the tip number 1, right? Are you ready now? We're going to go into the 7 tips and you stay all the way. 2 more tips after that. So tip number 1, when is the best time for salary negotiation? As I mentioned earlier, later the better, the final stage or the later stages. Because why? The more you hold out, because you progress through the interview rounds, that's where your bargaining power is higher. All right. Because imagine, all right, if you spend 1 month, 2 months going through the interview processes, for them to have to turn you down just because they cannot meet your salary expectations at the end, it means that the employer has to start the hiring cycle all over again, or they have to open negotiations with the next best candidate. All right. So remember, hold out for as much as possible, especially during the early stages. In this chart here by Richard Boyles, what color is your parachute, the book that he writes? There's this graph that shows you, at the start, your bargaining power, it increases as the time increases. And there's this point where the employer is thinking, we love you and we must have you. You're almost there already. And that's the best point of time to start negotiating your salary. All right. I just want to say, too early, what happens? Too early, you might get screened out, right? They might find that you don't fit the budget. So, off you go. We really cannot afford someone like you. And then the emphasis of the interview becomes on how much you're paid rather than what you can do. All right. So we want to avoid, that's the reason why we want to avoid that. We're not trying to be secretive, but we want them to focus on what we can do. At the same time, we want to also understand what is the role really about before we decide how much we want to be paid, right? Remember what I said earlier, it's not merely X percentage over what you last drawn, okay? And of course, don't hold out until too long, right? The last part where, it tips off because they are irritated and they cannot wait any longer. And then they say, never mind, let's just go with the next best candidate. And that's it, all right? So there's this little sweet spot here. So the best thing I would say is hold out maybe up to the second round onwards. And then that's where you start to think about how you want to bargain with the employer. Tip number 2, if today you are asked during interview on what are your salary expectations, like how I was, right? How do you hold off replying, right? Gerald, since you say it's about delaying, then how do you hold off? Give me some handles. Well, you can say something like that. I would prefer discussing about pay matters later, as I would like to review my own expectations against your job role and duties. Remember, the salary is pegged to how complex and how much work is needed to be done. So it's only fair to both employer and you to kind of look at that and from that perspective, have a good understanding of it before deciding what to do. So you're buying yourself some time. You could also say, I'm confident that the eventual offer from you guys will be a reasonable one. And we can certainly discuss that as we progress along. All right. So as much as possible, delay a direct negotiation situation. Don't start to go into a bargaining. I earn this amount of money, and then the person HR starts to ask you, would you accept this lower amount? And then the whole focus of the interview is spent on bargaining, and that's not the best way to present your skills, right? What you should do if you are in that situation, tell them you need time, promise them that you write back to them, give them a written response, or if worst case, they really force you to say something, give them a range, okay? Give them a range, a broad range, so that you have room to wiggle around and negotiate around, all right? So I'll talk about the range a little bit. Tip number 3, today, before you enter a salary negotiation or go for interviews, please do your salary research. That's really, really important because you need something to back you up. You need to be confident in knowing the numbers so that you can hold out and say that that's the minimum, I can't go below that. So JobStreet, they do an annual report about salary studies. And the latest one, 2020, you can scan the QR code and you can get that. It tells you the range of salaries for different levels of jobs, whether you are senior person or entry level, and for the different industries, they've compiled it all right? So that report is really useful. I looked at it. I wish I could actually just paste everything here, but it's just a lot of information. But please download that report for yourself and read, back yourself up with the necessary information about what your industry is paying so that you also know how much to ask for, all right? And if today the report is already 2022, for example, and then you don't have the latest report, what you could do, you could use JobStreet, check through the listings, compile a set of related jobs and their salary ranges. And from there, you start to become realistic, right? What's the upper range and what's the lower range? You can determine the range yourself based on the live postings from JobStreet, all right? So there are multiple ways to do this salary research. So, it's important, right, guys, for you to do this, because if you don't do this, you're going in without an arm. It's like fighting with one hand, all right? Tip number 4, how do you negotiate effectively? Now, I talk about bargaining, how do you start? So when with our salary research, right? Salary research, this is where it gets interesting. You need to use that information. And how do you use that? You determine 3 points, right? 3 salary points. The first point is the ideal amount that you want. The ideal amount you want, let's say based on what you last paid, based on the complexity of the role, based on what the market is paying. You determine the ideal amount that you want. And from there, you increase a 10 or 20% increase to start to create what you call a negotiation start mark or negotiation start point. That is the negotiation start mark is where you start to tell the employer that's your expectation. And then after that, you're allowed to negotiate downwards. And of course, set the lowest possible baseline amount for yourself. Some of you might say that it's your current job, whatever you're earning now, no lower than that. Some of you might say it could be lower than that because you're recognizing maybe you're doing a career switch, you're going to an emerging role, and you realize that maybe you don't have the necessary ability to do so much, at the start. So you need to take a little bit of a pay cut, quite a lot of pay cut sometimes even, right? So set the amounts for yourself. And what you want to do next is this, when you start the negotiation start mark and ideal, anything that falls within there as you discuss with the employer, that's a win for you. That's a bonus because you're getting more than what you expected, right? That's the green zone. And in the orange zone, that's where, you are kind of just below your ideal amount, but you are somewhere on top of your baseline. So the orange zone is not so good for you. You maybe want to start to rethink a little bit like whether this is the right thing for you to do or not. If today the salary is important for you. And lastly, the red zone below the baseline amount, that's also the zone that what we call the walk away zone. The baseline amount really needs to be the one that you look at it and you say, I really cannot go very long in this job at that kind of level because I don't think I'm rewarded enough. There's nothing wrong with walking away because you don't feel that you're compensated enough. That affects your motivation and your productivity at work. A lot of my clients, sometimes out of desperation, maybe, they take a job that's below the baseline. Within half a year or less than 1 year, they leave their jobs already because they said, I just cannot survive anymore. And it's fair to them, you see. But the only thing is, would you have wanted to take on that role and take on the role before realizing this? Or right at the start, you try to identify this the baseline amount and negotiate outwards from there. All right. So be sincere, in your negotiation. I just want to say this. Up to now, it might have sounded very cold, like it's just about numbers and it's just about negotiation. But please be sincere. Be human. All right. Remind the employer why you want to join them in the first place. All right. Remind them the perks of the role that excites you, even as you talk about the numbers. Okay. And then what you could do, delay or defer a written response or separate call with HR after the interview. If today the negotiation is reaching a stalemate, ask by yourself some time. I need some time to think through this. The job is really, really attractive. I just need some time. Can I speak to you at a later time, maybe tomorrow? Let me go back and think and discuss with my family about this. All right. This shows them that you're serious about the job and you're not going to walk away. Okay. So this is important. The next one, how to counter offer. All right. Tip number 5. So some handles again, counter offer means that they tell you a number and then you're counter offering another number. So how does that work out? So one thing you could say is, correct me if I'm wrong, all right? That's being respectful. But I learned from job listings and industry reports that the market rate for this role is typically 8,000 to 10,000 per month, right? So you are telling them, maybe they tell you, oh, we are only paying you 7,000. And then you say, correct me if I'm wrong. I learned from these reports that it's 8 to 10,000 per month. Or you could say something like, oh, my expectation is XXX amount based on my experiences, abilities, and skills that I can bring to your organization. So either way, you're either relying on external reports, market rate, to justify your counter offer, or you're using your own skill sets and abilities to counter offer as a basis for counter offering. What you should never do though, don't use other companies' offer as justification. I had this client who held out, all right, for 2 offers so that she can use this to tell the other company, your competitor, company A, is giving me this amount and you're giving me this. If you want me to join you, you have to up by 10%. Well, that didn't work out very well, right? And it really destroys her professional reputation. And of course, don't create too many counter offers also, because you will overall delay the recruitment. All right. People also have a patience. They do need you to come in as soon as possible to do the work. So don't delay too long. Next, tip number 6, make sure you consider the entire package. An entire package, we don't just mean the monthly salary that comes in. You have to consider things like the variable allowances. Some jobs come with shift allowances or driving allowances, petrol allowances. You have to consider that, transport allowance. You also want to start to think about perhaps what are the forms of training support that the company has. I know a company in Singapore, an MNC, they give $1,000 a year, $1,000 for staff to do upgrading for the courses that they want. A year, every year, $1,000 more. So that has to be factored in, because the company is taking care of you, allowing you to develop your skill sets even while you're on the job, right? Of course, the annual bonuses, ask for the bonus. What is a typical bonus structure like? Do you have the 13th month? Do you have 2 variable bonuses? Or do you have just 1 overall performance bonus a month? Ask for some track record. For example, ask the HR, over the past 2 years, what was the bonus payout like? The structure, could you give me a range? How many months, for example? All right. And of course, the intangibles. The package, we cannot run away from the intangibles. What are the intangibles? Being associated with the company itself, right? The reputation, the title that they're giving you, the work environment, the learning opportunities on the job, your long-term personal development, and even, for example, the benefits to your family, right? I had one client who used to, who's an expatriate, right? And then, for expats in Singapore, for those of you listening out here, insurance is a big cost, especially if your whole family is relocating with you to stay in Singapore with you. So insurance is a big cost. And some companies, they actually cover insurance for the family. That if you have a family of 3 people and each person costs up to $2,000, that's a big sum of money that you're actually saving if that's covered by the company. So you don't have to pay that out of your own pocket, right? So do consider the whole package. Sometimes giving you a big number with a lot of things omitted, it may not be the best overall computation that doesn't work overall for you, okay? So let's take number 6, consider the whole package, all right? So tip number 7, all right? I'm going to the bonus tip soon, all right? So if you are staying on, hang on for a while more, and I'll get into the last 2 tips before we go into FAQ. So at this point of time, maybe, if you have some questions, do type it into the Zoom chat or the Facebook chat, and I'll try my best, right? Me and Jay will try our best to try to answer as much questions as possible, okay? Tip number 7, how can I practice? So up to this point, we have talked about identifying the bargaining positions. We talked about doing the necessary research. We talked about being human, being nice about it, gave you some handles, how to delay and defer. And now as long as possible, hold off the salary negotiation, because the more airtime they have with you, the more bargaining power you have, all right? So last but not least, how can I practice? Okay, so practicing is important because, when you're in a negotiation room, they can smell whether you're confident or not, all right? So prepare to answer salary-related questions for your interviews. Like, for example, how much is your last drawn salary? That could be the start of your salary negotiation. Prepare to answer that. What are you expecting for your salary? And it is unlikely. Sometimes they'll say, oh, it's unlikely that we can match your salary. That is a negotiation tactic from the employer to just basically tell you, you can forget about getting more, and then if you don't want, you can exit. So they tend to do this very early on, so that they make sure that if you stay on, right, you are willing to adjust your own salary expectations a little bit. So do practice responses towards these questions. And in this sharing, right, the same principles apply. Delay, use market research, hold off as long as possible, use written responses, and of course, throughout it all, practice politeness, practice sincerity. Always focus back on what you can do for the company. Focus back on what the company, how is the company attractive for you? How is the role attractive for you? How is the environment good for you? Why is this role the best for you? Tell them that, show them that you are interested, you're motivated by the company, not by the money they're paying you. All right. So that's tip number 7. Okay. So in case you stay on, hang on, I just want to give a little shout out here to JobStreet for creating, the career tools. Over the last couple of days, you probably heard about, the JobStreet career tools. And if you have not checked it out, please do so. It's really quite awesome. All right. I've been there, and this is a screenshot from their interview practice tool. Yes, they have an interview practice tool, guys. You know, you look at the screenshot, you can actually select the top 5 questions from interviews. And when you select the question, what you get to do is you get to record your answers. So a camera pops out, and then if you're recording your answer, and then it plays back to you. You know, that is really useful because you get to see yourself answer your own questions, all right? And not only just the content of what you're saying, the how you're saying it, right? The body language, the gestures that you're doing, you know, this will help you to become more confident in terms of approaching your interview, so that, you know, when it reaches the interview, the salary negotiation stage, the same confidence flows through, all right? So the good people at JobStreet, they've done this. Please go and check it out. Please make use of it. It's really, really useful. I think this is the only one in Singapore, I think, that allows recording of answers. They're not just merely giving you the tip, but they're actually giving you the mechanism to see how you perform with that answer, all right? So here, if you stay all the way here, I just want to give you some bonus, all right? 2 bonus tips. The first one, bonus tip number 1, get a written offer when you have been selected, all right? This is really important because I've heard quite a few times, guys, of HR giving an offer verbally and then they back out. And you don't know what kind of happened, and you kind of feel like, oh, the last time we talked about this was because of the salary negotiation, and then they backed out of that. And then you feel that, did I do something wrong? I don't really know did I negotiate wrongly that caused this job to kind of disappear suddenly, right? So as much as possible, in the end of the interview process, start negotiating when you get a written offer. I think that's the best possible way, you know, because sometimes you want to say that if what I'm asking for is not something that you can pay me, okay, I will settle. But I still need a chance to say I'll settle rather than you having to take away the whole offer altogether. At that point of time, something might have changed. Maybe they're not convinced that you're the right person. Maybe they think that you're working for the money. They don't like what you're saying. Lots of things. But, you know, get a written offer. You know, at least it formalizes things for you. Usually, HR, what I realize is they prefer to talk over the phone because, you know why? Not they're trying to be secretive, because there's a lot of paperwork they need to do at the back end. They do need to fill up and seek approval for the amount. So they want to check in with you first before they send you the official confirm offer, right? So you know what, you can tell them, you know, I'm not really able to process this over the phone. Could you send me something, a written email or written contract, so that I can take a look and decide for myself later? I promise to respond to you by a certain timing, right? Okay, so that's bonus tip number 1. And the last one, bonus tip number 2, please omit your salary, expected or last drawn from your resume. Okay, this is really important. I sigh because I've seen quite a lot of this in a lot of resumes, and I kind of want to tell people, you know, at one go, all of you who are listening on, we've got about quite a lot of people online. You know, if this is you, if you have your salary on your resume, please take it out. All right. Some of you are really nice. You tell me, because employer always asks me, so I might as well just put it up there for them. Well, if you're doing that, you're actually doing yourself a disfavor, because when the employer sees that mark, a few things happens, right? They're going to negotiate from that mark downwards. So you don't have much wiggle room for your negotiation. Second thing, if you start to put in a series of your last drawn for all of your last 3 to 4 or 5 jobs, employers can actually see what the increments that you're actually earning. And then that's the reason why they'll say, okay, then your next increment should just be $200. And that's it. Even though the role is very different, because they assume that you'll be comfortable with a $200 increase. They might even come back to tell you that, you know what, you shouldn't expect anything more than 200. You know, that's what you have been living on, right? So this is a fair offer. You know, it's not fair. It's only fair if it's benchmarked against market rate, against what the role is asking you to do. All right. So, and of course, I mentioned earlier, employers may screen you out even without meeting you. So putting the salary in the resume itself, right? They read the resume, they see, oh, the asking too high. Next, they don't even want to listen to you. So what you want to do is omit that, get them to see, look, focus on your skills. Okay, you have all the skills. I'm going to call you, and then at the interview, that's where the getting to know you happens. And then later on, the salary negotiation happens. Okay, so I come to the end of my sharing. I really hope all of you manage to get something, you know, something big or something small out of this. Like I mentioned to you, I do hope that this session is useful in whatever stages of interview you are at. You know, salary negotiation is a happy thing. If today you are already almost at the brink of salary negotiation, you're very close to a new job. So I just want to congratulate you. And for those of you still looking for a job, hold out, you know, stay positive and hold out for that. All right. So now I want to just jump into the Q&A. I know we got quite a few questions, right? and we're going to see how we're going to answer that. So let me just answer from the Zoom chat first. All right. Nicholas is asking, can we show the first 5 slides again? Nicholas, the entire session is recorded. So the good people at JobStreet will make it available soonest. Then that's where you're able to get the information you need. All right. Thanks for asking that question. Regine is asking, how do you avoid benchmarking to the last round? If you are applying different roles and you're asked by company HR, but was asked how much is your last round if that's not what you expected. You know, Regine, there's 2 parts to your question here. One, how do you answer HR when they ask you very early on what's your last round? Another one is what happens if you're applying for a different role, right? That's why I mentioned every salary negotiation is very unique. And what I'm able to give you today are broad principles, but you really have to look at the intricacies of every negotiation situation, right? For example, if today you are moving into a related role, into a more senior role in the same field that you are in, or it's along your specialization, then certain way of salary negotiation happens. But if today you are making a career switch into a different role, then it's a total different ballgame altogether. It's really like the bargaining power is really more on the employer side, because they can say, look, I need this for my role. You don't display enough of these things for me. And therefore, I don't think I can pay you that much, all right? So as much as possible, delay, do your homework, right? Get back to the employer with a written response, and remember to focus on what you can do. Explain to them how you can do the new role that you're applying for adequately, right? And that how confident you are in that space. Give them a range, to negotiate around. I'm looking between this and this, right? And that's what that's what I'm aiming for. Anything in between, I'll be grateful for that. Remember, as you're negotiating, be sincere, all right? So Regine, that's the answer for you. Lexi, is it advisable to ask for a pay range that's higher than the stated range if you have better experience? How can you negotiate that? So Lexi, good point. Employers also won't tell you what is the stated range. I mean, they tell you maybe in a job description, right? And then you need to look at it for yourself. If today you are earning a lot more than that, and the title of that job is very different from your current title is higher, that's why you're getting more pay, for example, then there might be other issues beyond salary negotiation. For example, employers will be wondering, why would you want to take the big title cut? Why would you want to take the big salary cut? That's a very legitimate thing in their mind, because they are wondering whether will you stay long with them. So you know what? You got to review this and see how far away are you in terms of your expectations. Apply for something that perhaps is close to your range, not too far away. And of course, be mindful of your title. All right, your title actually says a lot. Or your last job scope also says a lot about it. Okay, so don't show hands so easily. Try to get to the interview table. You never know what happens. Somebody's impressed by your enthusiasm and your experience and buys into why you are able to take why you're actually making this switch. And then they will be able to accommodate to your offer. Sometimes, from my experience, what the employer says is, okay, you are out of my budget, but I do have another vacancy, and what I'll do, I'll switch the budget over. So I even give you a higher title than that, because the title belongs to the budget range, the salary range belongs to a higher title. I'm going to give you a higher title so you can fit into that budget. It happens before, all right? So Lexi, that's one for you. I'm going to kind of jump into the other Zoom chat, because there's a lot of questions there as well, to be fair. All right, let me just go further up to some of the questions. All right, Donnie is asking, question not related to salary, okay? How to answer if a potential employer asks you if you have pending or ongoing applications with other companies? Thanks in advance, keep safe, right? Thank you, Donnie, great question. They always ask that. Sometimes I don't even know why they ask that. When I was on the other side, I was asking interview questions, right? Usually when I ask that, sometimes it's just to throw off the person, just to make the person feel like we are interested in you, because I'm not entirely sure. That's one. The second one is, I really want you, and I want to know how far along are you in your progress, because I don't want to lose you, right? So either way, what you want to do is to tell the person the honest truth, right? You can tell them, that you are expecting some offers. You are very far along in a certain interview process already, right? So if you are that increases your bargaining power as well. Yeah, then they will act with a bit more urgency. But if you have said that already and you don't hear them back from them, then it's likely that perhaps they are looking for somebody else. All right. So I hope that answers your question, Donnie. Elvin is asking, when HR calls you to offer a job, but the offer salary is not up to your expectation, even lower than your current pay, how should you respond back? All right. So this is where, Elvin, you have a job offer. but it's not quite meeting up to your pay. That's where you start to negotiate, right? You can counter offer. Tell them, based on my research, a role for like this is around this type of market price. Could you offer anything between this range to this range? Ask them for that, right? And then assess, let them come back to you with a written offer as well, all right? And then you might also want to say, maybe you want to give me a better overall package understanding of all the benefits as well, right? Like for example, insurance, is it covered? Do I get training grants? So asking for more things to kind of help you see the bigger picture of what you're actually earning, right? And I'm going to try one more. How do you back off, Jason? How do you back off? How do you know when to back off? When they say we are unlikely to match your expected salary, how would you tell if this is a negotiation tactic or flat out rejection? Okay, so Jason, it doesn't matter. You don't have to guess. What you just need to see is when they say this to you. So if today they're saying we're unlikely able to match your expected salary, and that's very early on, right? Then sometimes that's just to kind of soften the ground for you. But if they keep calling you after that, right, then they are willing to meet. It's just that they're trying to manage your expectations. But if today, right at the last stage, where of the offer already, when you already identified the candidate or one of the shortlisted candidates, and they tell you that's the amount, they cannot match your offer, this is where you start to look at your range of, remember the 3 points, the negotiation start mark, your ideal mark, identify any point within that ideal mark, right? Or even just below the ideal, above your baseline, just below down there, all right? So anything there, it's a win-win, guys, it's a win-win. And remember, this is just merely the start of your salary in the company. You're going to get increments when you perform well. You're going to get bigger bonuses when you perform well, right? So don't hold out. Don't hold out just that everything must be like that, must be on point right away. Sometimes the journey of the company matters. Sometimes it's intangible that matters as well, okay? So I'm going to ask, jump back again to the Q&A. How should we answer to interviewer if they ask our last drawn in the interview? Last round salary. Well, we answered this a fair bit, simple, delay for as much as possible, right? During the interview, say, I give you a written response after this, and then if they hold up for something, you can say that I prefer to talk about my skill sets and my experiences here. And then I want to also understand your job. I want to understand what your role comprises so that I can manage my own expectations. I will come back to you with an answer. All right. So that's one way to delay. And then see how they get back to you, all right? Sometimes it's good because when you delay, right, then they have to get back to you. Then you have another chance to ask the recruiter, how is it so far? How far am I going to the next round or not? You have the opportunity to talk to them, all right? Let me see what else is. Okay, how should we? Okay, this one, Crystal's question is also answered. About the salary expectations, some employers insist on giving a specific amount. How do we deal with it? Right? Number one, politely and sincerely. Sometimes employers, they ask really very bad questions, but because at the interview table, who has the bargaining power? They have the rights to choose who they want to hire. Sometimes they say certain things in a certain way to throw you off, and then they're out there to kind of make you fall, so that they say, yeah, you cannot even take a simple question like this. How can we work with you? Our stakeholders are so much more demanding than this, right? So with sincerity, with kindness and with politeness, just smile and say, I see where you're coming from, but I really do seek your understanding. I do need some time to think through about this. You have given me some pointers about what the job comprise. I still have some questions about what the job role is about. Maybe I would like to ask those questions first, and then at some opportunity, I will answer your question about my last drawn. All right. So as much as possible, hold out. But remember, if cannot hold out anymore, really, really push you to the max, right? Then you can say, you know what, based on my market research, this is where the market research comes in, a role like this pays typically around this amount, right? So I think your company will also be able to match this kind of fair compensation. And I have no doubt about that. The opportunity to work with your company is more important to me at this point, all right? So that's one way to answer with politeness, with sincerity, okay? All right, there's a lot of questions, guys, and I'm happy that you are asking questions because this means that this session was useful, okay? Alison is asking this, a real case, right? So I'm in the midst of negotiating my pay package. Despite telling them my current drawn, they want to lowball me and said that I don't have the relevant experience, only wanted to match my current pay. But the newbie pay role for this is more than my current pay. Oh dear. So a newbie pay is even lower than what you're getting. So how should I negotiate to the newbie pay, which is higher than my current drawn? All right. This is really interesting. I'm not so sure about what's the context of the type of role. Remember, I said every negotiation is unique. There are many situations in there that could make something more easier to negotiate or harder. So in Allison's case, I do feel that what you need to do is to tell the recruiter, the line manager that you need some more time, right? Asking for time is a way to delay a little bit more. You ask them, how much time do I have before I get back to you to consider? So delay it for as long as possible, because that tactic, right, allows you to, the line manager might start to say, have we gotten back to Allison? Why is she not confirming yet? Then the HR will have to come back to you, and then there's urgency on their part to just give you what you want, or meet you halfway at least to what you want. The other thing that you need to do is start to tell the employer, right, how relevant your skills and experiences are towards their aim. And you have to be very specific about this. You cannot just be washy and just give a broad sentence. You have to say, I looked at your job and I understood from your interview that, there's a lot of coordination needed. All this coordination, for example, right, requires difficult stakeholders, and there's also a lot of overtime and a lot of management to do. Well, from my past experiences, I've record of doing this very well, right? And I used to be drawing this kind of amount, and working for a company like this, together with my research, I do feel that I deserve this type of pay, right? And then if today they still want to lowball you, you might want to ask them, so what is the pay that you think would be deserving for me, right? Based on what I shared with you. Throw the ball back to them. And then you know what? If it meets your baseline at the end of a baseline or below that, then maybe it's time for you to walk away. Sometimes it's okay for you to walk away, right? Because joining a company that you feel not valued at, even before you started working, that's going to be tough, right? But there are many situations, because all of you have different commitments, different situations. So I wouldn't say walking away is the best thing. I say you have to consider, talk to your friends, talk to your family members, those people who know you and who trust you and who you trust, right? To ask them for their views on this. Because some of you here might be going through a series of unemployment and you really need this job, right? And this is better than nothing. So perhaps that might be a better way, accepting something lower. That's why I say it really depends on the context, all right? So Alison, I hope that kind of helps you a little bit more. Maybe I'll go through one last question, because I have 4 minutes left. In a while, we'll see Jay pop out, and then he's reminding us that we are almost about time. Okay, Carrick said this, I had some interviewers who spoke very fast when negotiating salaries, which made the negotiation move too quickly. Oh no, how do I slow down the conversation without coming across rude and insincere? Well, when they speak fast, Carrick, don't speak fast with them. Sit back and wait, and you can ask them to repeat. Could you repeat what you just said? Sorry, I couldn't catch that, right? Stay calm. Hear what they say. Take your time to answer. Look deep in thought. Look up, and say, Just stay silent for a while. Silence means that you are processing. It doesn't mean that you don't know. Silence for a while. And then perhaps if you feel comfortable, you say, maybe what you said is important. Acknowledge what they said. And what you said is important. It made me think deeper. I may need some time to come back to you on this. I don't really respond. I'm not able to respond so quickly. I want to be fair to you and me as well. All right. So sometimes when they move too fast, slow them down. All right. Slow them down. You don't owe it to them to answer everything on the go. All right. So be confident in yourself. Slow down. Remember, if you already know what's your baseline, what's your ideal mark, what's your and also your market rate, you already have more bargaining power. Sometimes it's okay to make the employer slow down a little bit more. Okay. 2 minutes more. Let me just scroll back up to see if there's anything. This anonymous person is saying, hi, if my company notice period is 3 months for executive level, how to bargain when interview for new company, and how to shorten the period with existing company? Wow, this is tough, right? There's good reason why executive levels notice period is long. So if you want to worm out of it, it's very difficult, because they need to find a replacement for the leaders. So it's really more to keep the ship steady. It's really more to find support transition. So that's the reason why it's a bit tougher to kind of shorten. But you know what? For many companies that actually want to hire senior leaders, they already know this. So it's quite a market practice for senior leaders. It won't be 1 month notice, one confirm for sure. Some of them even have to take gardening leave, by the way. So if the next company wants you, they will wait for you. All right, they'll wait for you. And if today they cannot wait for you, perhaps you might want to wonder why you don't have this habit of waiting for transitions in. Is it something burning in-house that needs your attention so urgently? All All right. So I hope that kind of answers your question. And of course, you know, if today you already accepted that offer, what you might want to do is find out from the company, is there any way to just keep updated on what they're doing? So at least you can advise remotely, all right, not being involved, or at least being aware of what's happening in the company as they get a deputy or standing to support you, your incoming role. All right. So guys, I really enjoyed this. I see Jay appear.
I'm so sorry, Gerald.
No problem.
Okay, I actually have a lot of questions for you personally, but you know, we don't have enough time. I'm really sorry, guys, but nothing to worry. For those of you still want to connect with Gerald and some of other career coaches, let me bring you to our career website. Thank you so much, by the way, Gerald, for the time for sharing with us. I think that's my favorite topic for the entire BCF, right? Hopefully you have a great day, okay? Let me just bring all of them to our career website. I'm gonna share to you my screen because I understand that you do have a lot of questions on how to get to the website, how to get connected to Gerald again, or other career coaches. So in here, our virtual career fair, we're gonna run this for 3 days, the live streaming, but the website itself, you can connect with the big companies out there until the 25th. Also, the recording, if you miss those previous live streamings that we had, right? You can always go into the website and watch it again, like if you have any questions. But right now, I think this is your chance to get connected with the career coaches. Let me bring you to where you get them connected. Just scroll a little bit. And you see here, get prepped with career advice. Click on this one. And you will see the schedules of the career coaches. You'll have it, all the schedules are all in here. And if you want to chat with all of them or one of the career coaches, yes, you can chat them. You just click on this button at the right bottom part of the screen, okay? So also in this career page, right, or the virtual career page, you will have this career, let me bring it up, this one. This is actually my favorite, free career tools in template. Let me bring this up to you. In this page right here, there are a lot of tools that is very helpful for your career, especially if you have interviews with the big companies right now, because you have already applied your jobs or your favorite jobs, right? You can practice interviewing with this practice tool. And also if you want to learn more about the salary calculation, as what you know from Gerald just now, right? If you want to know how, you know, if you want to know if your salary right now is right enough for you, then you do the salary calculations itself. Okay, it's very easy though. Just go visit our website and you will have it handy. And it's very informative. You can actually see here a lot of companies that is hiring now, and go get an opportunity to chat with them personally or, you know, virtually rather. All right. Unfortunately, that's the end of our session today. Hopefully, wherever you are, you had fun and you had a lot of key takeaways for all of the sessions that we had for the 3 days for the live streaming. Okay. See you again for the next round of virtual career fair. We don't have the date yet, but definitely we're gonna do it again because we are here to connect with you to help you with your career advices as well. All right, you all have a great day. Thanks everyone for staying.